Hello everyone, thanks for joining me. I wanted to share a little project that I did. This is the SD ground Gundam. It's a plastic model kit, and I installed 3 LEDs in the gun barrel together with a muzzle flash effect, and I just wanted to share how I did it and hope it helps you in your hobby journey. So I assembled it as you see here, and what I did was I basically spent a lot of time working on the weapon itself. The objective was to swap the main barrel out with a polystyrene tube and then store batteries in the backpack. Now I like this kit because it gives you a lot of room for modifications and a lot of room for storage, and it's very forgiving in terms of where you want to run wires for your LEDs. Now as you can see, the first thing I did was remove the barrel, and what I'm going to do is just make sure that my barrel is the same diameter as the polystyrene tube. You can see here it's about 3.6 millimeters. Once I've done that, what I do is I mark out the length of tube and then cut it to the appropriate length. Now when that's done, what I do is I proceed to drill out the barrel of the flash suppressor on the tip of the weapon. In addition to hollowing out the flash suppressor lengthwise, I also drill out the side vents. Now I cut off the barrel that I do not want, and I finish off with hollowing out the flash suppressor from the other side. The same is done with the main body of the weapon as well. What I did was I disassembled it and removed some of the structural components inside of the weapon. So I had to remove a couple of pegs and sockets, as well as some of the large struts. Here you see a copper tube that I used to reinforce the barrel, as well as provide some kind of foundation to prevent the barrel from being bent or crooked after I installed it. I eyeballed the length that I needed, having a bit of copper protruding from either side of my polystyrene tube, and then I fitted it in with the muzzle and the rest of the weapon receiver. After test fitting, what I do is I run some light gauge wires in through the copper tube and out the other end, and this is where I will sort of run all the wires out to a little gap that I drilled close to the handle of the weapon. You'll see here that I actually made a small hole there. so that when I clamshell it together, the wire can run out. So that's the whole thing dry fit together. What I do after this is start to work on the fixing of everything in place. Now this is what I call sprue goo. It's a mixture of plastic cement and waste sprues, some leftover sprues. It melts down the sprues and turns into this gel-like consistency. It's really good and sandable once it sets, so I allow this to cure overnight. While that is curing, I also glue the weapon receiver halves together, and once that sets, I sand it down and I give this a coat of grey paint. Here you see me laying out the components I need. The plastic connector is very honestly not needed, but I put that in so that I had the option of swapping out weapons if I wanted to later on. So here's a AA battery holder. It appeared to be slightly longer than the backpack, so what I did was I cut out a section of the base so that the battery holder could fit. Generally it was not too compromising. At the end of the day, the battery holder wasn't that conspicuous, even though it stuck out the base. Here you see me recklessly cutting towards myself. I do advise you to be careful as you start doing all this hacking. So sanding it down just to achieve a fairly smooth finish. This is the bottom of the model, so most of the time no one's going to see it. So what's happening here is I'm cutting out a slot for the on-off switch. Depending on the type of switch you use, the size of the gap that you cut will vary. I kind of overestimated the gap, and at the end of the day there's a little hole there. Again, not too conspicuous, but that was one of the major gripes that I had with this project. So I'm eyeballing the length of wire I need to run the power to the weapon and along the arm. So drilling a small hole in the corner and running my wires through, I sort of estimated the amount of slack I needed. Then what I do now with the entire assembly of the weapon is I attach a connector, a plastic connector, and the switch. And then I connect everything to the battery holder as well, and you can see everything put together. At this point you'll see that the weapon has already been painted, and what I'm doing here is I'm soldering 3 LEDs together. At the end of the day I didn't feed the LED through the side of the muzzle brake, but you can see the effect is acceptable. Using some sponge that I got from an aquarium filter, I put down a gradation of fluorescent yellow, orange and brown, and there you go, there's the sort of muzzle flash effect of the ground Gundam. I was pretty satisfied with this project. I just run it over sort of a weekend, took me to finish this project, and I think the effect is quite dramatic I wouldn't do anything different aside from the fact that the gaps for the switch is a little bit big, and I'd probably move the switch to somewhere less conspicuous. But all in all, this was a fun project, and I hope this helped you improve your hobby as well. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments and let me know if you sort of like this type of video, so that I can do something similar in future. Visit my website cringeboner.com, as well as visit the links down in the description. Take care. Bye bye.